where the famine was more general, it says b'chol aratzos, in all the lands, which could be all the lands in the region. Here it's in the specific land, it says it twice. So Rashi comments, in that land only, to test him whether he would take exception to God's commands, in that he had bidden him to go to the land of Canaan and now forced him to leave it. In other words, because Baruch says to him, remember we said so last time, there I'm going to make you into a great nation. Here it can't happen to you. It's your nature to become a great nation. That can only happen there. Now, if he goes there and there's a general famine in the whole region, which would be more natural than having in one tiny country, you say, okay, so for whatever reason, there's a necessity to have that in the region, and what HaKadosh Baruch Hu promised me will happen later. He could explain it to himself. But now, there's a famine in one place, only one place. And that's the place where HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent him. That looks almost, the opposite of what he would have expected. So Rashi says, when the Torah stresses is in that land, to teach you that this was part of the test. I told you to go there. I told you you're going to become a great nation there. And now I'm creating a situation which is pushing you out. Do you have doubts? Are you worried? Are you feeling abandoned? Are you feeling cheated? This is the test that he was being given, according to Rashi. Now, from Rashi, it's clear that going down to Egypt was the right thing to do. But others disagree. The Ramban disagrees very strenuously and says that it was a double transgression. Number one, God told him to go to this land. He shouldn't have left it. And number two, he says, even worse, he put his wife, the tzadekes, that great righteous woman, in danger. That was even worse. So Ramban counts it to him as a terrible mistake. And the Ramban also is saying something which is not in any earlier sources. He doesn't quote any earlier sources. That's his way of understanding it. But anyway, we're doing Rashi. And Rashi, there's no such critique. Okay, now the next verse says, verse 11, and it occurred, as he was about to enter Egypt, that he said to his wife Sarai, see now, I have known that you are a woman of beautiful appearance. Now, I have known is quite difficult. In plain English, you would never say that. You'd either say I know or I knew. You don't say I have known. In Hebrew, it's a past tense verb, yadati. The question is, what does it mean to express? He's going to say to her that you're beautiful, they're going to see you, and then they will desire you, and they'll have bad consequences. So, putting it in the past at all, what do I care about what he knew last week or last year? Right now is when the problem is, and you should speak about what he knows now. So now, your translator here took a different translation, now I know, but the problem is that it's past tense. So now, Rashi, we've seen this a couple of times before. Rashi doesn't only do pshat. He does pshat, but he also does midrash from time to time. We saw in the very first Rashi that we studied that he started with the midrash and afterwards went to pshat. And that's what he's going to do in this pasuk also. He's going to start with the midrash and then go to pshat. The midrashic explanation is, until now, he had not perceived her beauty owing to the extreme modesty of both of them. Now, however, through this event, he became cognizant of it. Maybe a little point of explanation here would be worthwhile. This week's parsha is Chayei Sarah, and it says when she died, she was 100 years and 20 years and 7 years old. Not 127, but 100 years and 20 years and 7 years. So the Midrash Rashi brings comments. She was at 100 like 20 in terms of transgression, because in terms of your responsibility vis-a-vis HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that starts at 20. Even though you're an adult at 13 as a boy or 12 as a girl, and you're responsible to other people, and you're responsible to an earthly court, because Baruch Hu, court does not hold you responsible until you're 20. So it says when she was 100, in terms of her status vis-a-vis transgression, she was like she was when she was 20, meaning completely blameless. That's one. And at 20, she was as beautiful as she was at the age of 7. Now that's a challenging statement, boys and girls. What is that supposed to mean? At 20, she was as beautiful as she was at 7. And that depends a little bit on what you think beauty is, how you associate beauty, what you conceive of, what kind of pictures come to mind. You naturally assume that a 7-year-old girl, beauty would be the beauty of a child, and the beauty of a 20-year-old woman would be the full-fledged feminine beauty. The Torah is telling you, no, that's not right. What you see in a 7-year-old child is innocence, purity, and although it's rumored that little children are selfish, they also can be very selfless. They can see someone in need. I would say in a prejudiced manner, especially girls, less so boys. They can see someone in need and make a gesture to serve that need. There's a kind of consistency, purity, and let's see if I can find the right word. Unself-conscious presentation. A 20-year-old, part of her consciousness is how are they looking at me? How are they responding to me? What impression am I making? Should I change my outfit? Should I wear a different hat? How should I do my hair? I mean, these are the things that occur. The 7-year-old isn't thinking about that. She's not doing something to make an impression on you. She is what she is because of what she is. So what the Chazal tells over there is that Sarah was at 20 the way girls are at 7. She's a full-grown, fully developed woman, and the impression that she made was that impression. Like Esther, who's linked to her, says, a certain charm, a certain fascination. And part of it is, I'm not here to impress you, I'm here to be me. So it's an entirely different thing. So now, she was sanua, and therefore she was careful to both dress and behave in a modest fashion. But now, Avraham Avinu is thinking, okay, what's going to happen when we go to Egypt? So he has to look at her through the eyes of the Egyptians and realize that there's going to be danger. So what changed here was not her. What changed here was his mode of perceiving her, because the conditions required it. That's what it means, became cognizant of it. That's one. Another explanation, usually because of the exertion of traveling, a person becomes uncomely. People don't retain their beauty in the same way, but she retained her beauty in spite of the trip. So both of these explain the circumstances which required the comment that she has beauty. Still, Rashi says the pshat is not those explanations. Pshat is, behold, now the time has come when I'm anxious because of your beauty. Not that I came to know that you're beautiful now. I knew you were beautiful before, but I didn't mention it before. It wasn't a matter of discussion before because the circumstances didn't require it. So the yadati, according to the pshat, is literal. I have known. That's why the translation over here in the art school is very good. I have known. I've been aware of your beauty for the decades that we've been married, and now it's a problem. Now we're traveling among people who are not beautiful, never been accustomed to see a beautiful woman. what he means here to bring from this pasuk, I don't know. I didn't remember this. Wait a minute. Hine Su. Oh, he's worried about the no. It says,
Like now.
Vayika shehikilu vayoma. Hine no yadati. Now no usually, by the way, we said this once, but it's important to keep in mind. The word no means now. That's what it means. And when Chazal say ein no el lashon b'chasha, whenever you see the word no, it is a language of please. What Chazal mean is this: there are several words in Hebrew for now, and this is the polite one, the polite form. When you use the word no, you're speaking to someone to whom you want to show honor. Another word for now is ato with an ayin taf hey. Another one is achshav. But so he's speaking to her in a dignified, respectful manner. And that's what he's bringing from here. Behold now, my lords, turn aside, I pray you. And there the word is no, also because he's showing them honor. Okay? All right. Now, what's the proposal? He says to her, 12, it shall occur when the Egyptians will see you, they will say this is his wife. That's pretty reasonable. A man and a woman traveling together, Then they will kill me, but you they will let live. Please say you are my sister, that it may go well with me for your sake, and that I may live on account of you. So Rashi's only comment here is to explain, what does it mean it may go well with me? What is he looking for? What kind of benefit is he anticipating? So Rashi here, 12:13 says, they may give me presents. Now, I think that this Rashi requires some thought. Especially if you take account of the order in the verse. Again, 12. It shall occur, the Egyptians will see you, they will say this is his wife. They will kill me, but they will let you live. Please say that you're my sister. Why? Why did you say my sister? Well, first of all, that it may go well with me for your sake, I might get some gifts out of it. I make some money on it. Well, let's see. The one thing is money, and there was something else. Give me a second to think it up. What's the other thing that was good for me? Oh, yeah, I'll stay alive. I almost forgot that one, But good thing I remembered it. Why would that be at the end of the list? Come on. At the least it should say, I'll stay alive and they'll give me gifts. Right? So the explanation here is very simple. They're going to say, if they think they're husband and wife, they're going to kill him and take her, right? If they think they're brother and sister, what are they going to do? They're not entirely lawless. They're not entirely savage. If the only way to get her is by killing him because they're husband and wife, they'll do it. But if they're brother and sister, he is her protector. They will appeal to him to marry her. And they will try to bribe him to marry her. So, indeed, he will get presents, and that's why it comes first. If you say we're brother and sister, I'll be given gifts for your sake because of you.
Wow.
Because they want you. And in that way, I'll live. Because they'll be wanting to convince me to agree to a marriage. So it works out very well if you understand it that way. Yeah.
Isn't it also so Abraham could, so to say, make it as if Sarah was giving to him or giving into the situation and not taking?
That I've said in the past, but that follows from a different analysis of the language. This is not in the Rashi, but the analysis there is this. He says to her, listen, there is a problem. What's the problem? My life is in danger. That's the problem. I need your help to save my life. So here's my proposal. Please, please say that you're my sister so that I will live. Right? Now, I think if we were there, in Aaron's position, we wouldn't have said it that way. What we would have said is this. The problem is that we are in danger. Not I'm in danger, but we're in danger, because what is their plan? After they kill me, what's going to happen to you? They're going to take you into an Egyptian harem. That's what's going to happen. Is that good for you? Probably not. Probably don't want that. So we're both in danger. And since we're both in danger, here's my plan to save both of us. That's what I think we would have said. The question is, why didn't Abraham say that? And the answer is because if he says what I suggested, he's creating on her a debt of gratitude that he's saving her. Of course, he's saving himself also, but he's also saving her. And she owes him gratitude. Abraham doesn't want that she should owe him gratitude. So he paints it as a favor she's doing for him. I'm in danger. Please say you're my sister so that I will survive through you. End of story. It's an exquisite sensitivity on his part to do it that way. As a matter of fact, a few chapters hence, she repays the favor in exactly the same terms. It's a different case, but exactly the same terms, where she paints herself as asking Abraham for a favor, when really what she wants to do is do something for him. But she doesn't paint it that way. She paints it as she's asking him for a favor, so that when he does it, he won't owe her anything. So you see that each of them used this interpersonal technique vis-a-vis the other. I think it's absolutely exquisite. Okay, so yeah.
But isn't he also benefiting from it in the sense that by saying that she's my sister and he gets money for that, isn't it also a benefit to himself?
Yeah, but like.
So why would she be doing him a favor in that sense if he's benefiting? If I mean they're both benefiting from it. Does it make sense?
Well, but again, the mention of gifts here is not one of the good things that's going to happen, because if it were one of the good things that's going to happen, it should be second, not first. So it's not a benefit out of the scheme, an extra profit, higher profits from AT&T, we'll put it in the stock market. No, it's the means by which I will stay alive. So it's not a benefit, it's just the benefit he wants is to stay alive. That's what he says. They'll see you, they'll kill me, and they'll take you. He doesn't say we're too poor to afford a steak dinner in the restaurant. What he says is, I'm going to die.
So how is it a favor for her, though?
Because if he is killed, what's going to happen to her?
I see, okay, I understand.
Right. He's going to be taken into a harem. And that's not going to be good for her. So he's saying to brother and sister, it saves both of them. But he doesn't mention that it saves both of them. It only mentions that it saves him.
So does that also mean it's both their decisions to go down into Egypt, as opposed to just his decision being put upon her?
It's a good question. Is it both their decision or I will just tell you one instance, a different instance, which could be indicative. When Jacob spends 20 years in Haran with Lavan, and then it's time he has to leave. Lavan has turned against him, his cousins are turned against him, and he's in danger. And God says to him, leave, go back to Israel. So what does he do? He gets this instruction from God, go back to Israel. And the next verses are, he calls his two wives out to where the flocks are, where they can talk to them with no spies around the corner. And he tells them, I've been working here for 20 years, and I served your father, and he cheated me over and over again. And now he's turned against me, and God has told me to go home. End of speech. It tells them that. They respond, we don't have a share in our father's house anymore. He's treated us like chattel. Everything that God told you to do, do. If you have the standard prejudices about the ancient Near East, you would have expected him to come to them and say, pack up, ladies, we're moving out in 2 hours. He doesn't do that. No. He doesn't tell them they have to go. He says, God told me to go home. That's all. They have to leave their father. They have to leave their homeland, their culture, their other relatives. This is what God told me to do. This is how you treat people. And in particular, a husband treats a wife. Doesn't simply just issue an order. He puts it in front of them, and their last words there are really, I would say, almost shocking. Everything that God told you to do, you should do. Really? I need, Jacob could say, I need you to confirm what God told me to do. God is God. I don't have to have your permission to do what he said, but that's what's expected. It's expected that if you're going to make a move and it's going to have consequences for your wife, you speak to her about it and you explain it to her and then you get her reaction. Same thing's true when God tells Moses to go down to Egypt to be the agent for taking the Jews out of Egypt. He goes to his father-in-law and asks permission to go. Because you don't just walk out on your father-in-law with his daughter and just leave. You don't do that. It's not the right way to do things. And Moshe knows that that's what the Kodesh Baruch Hu wants him to do. Yaakov knows that that's what the Kodesh Baruch Hu wants him to do. So I think it would be fair to infer here that Avraham didn't just say to Sarah, "Pack up, we're leaving," but he talked to her about it, and they joined in the decision. I don't know of any sources talking about it, but given those two other cases, it would be fair to assume that that's what happened here as well. Yeah? Okay. So now, let's open this up again. Yeah. Okay, so now what happens? They do it. They come to Egypt and they say their brother and sister. 14. It occurred when Avram was coming to Egypt. The Egyptians saw the woman was very beautiful. When the officials of Pharaoh saw her, they lauded her, they praised her for Pharaoh. It's one thing to negotiate with an Egyptian prince or an Egyptian official, something else. You don't negotiate with Pharaoh. Sorry. Pharaoh just takes. You don't have to ask permission. One was taken to Pharaoh's house. And he treated Avram well for her sake. Acquired sheep, cattle, donkeys, slaves, maidservants, female donkeys, and camels. He got the presents he expected, but not now in the way that he expected. Not as a negotiating tool to get him to agree. You don't have to agree with Pharaoh. But it's not seemly for Pharaoh to have a pauper for a brother-in-law. So Avram, so they sort of push him up to enable him to. So this has disastrous effects. Next page. Shem afflicted Pharaoh along with his household with severe plagues because of the matter of Sarai, wife of Avram. Certain terrible things happened, and something in it that happened enabled Pharaoh to figure out why it was happening. Because his next move is to summon Avram and give Sarah back. Pharaoh summoned Avram and said, "What is this you have done to me? Why did you not tell me she is your wife? Why did you say she is my sister, so I would take her as my wife? Now here's your wife, take her and go." Now, I just want to make sure that you don't misunderstand the words here. Take her as my wife does not mean that he had relations with her. The plagues were designed to prevent that. As my oldest son said to me once, comparing this with Avimelech, if you're going to become a wife of an emperor and you're going to take your place in the palace, there's a lot you need to know. And the event has to be planned. So she was taken into the palace and given her private quarters, and in a month or 2 months or 3 months, they'll get married according to Pharaoh's plan. It wasn't an overnight thing. It wasn't a one-night stand he was looking for. He was looking for someone to occupy a place as one of his 32 queens. Okay, come on, this is Pharaoh. He's got lots of wives. But he wants her also. Instead of that, so he says, I would take her as my wife. That doesn't mean I would take her to be my wife. But take does not mean having relations. And in Avimelech's case, he says to God, I took her as my wife, and God says, and that's why I didn't let you touch her. I made you sick immediately, and you couldn't touch her. So don't read into this what you might read in from the English. It just means she was abducted into the palace and given her quarters in preparation for a later wedding. So now, what does Pharaoh say? Take her and go. Take her and go. So on this, Rashi says, this is 12:19, not as Avimelech who said to him, behold, my land is before you, dwell wherever it seems proper to you. There too, Avimelech took her into the palace, and the God came to the elder and said, you're going to die, you and everything that belongs to you. You took a married woman and all the rest, and I didn't let you touch her. But at the end of the interaction there, Avimelech says, my land is in front of you. Dwell wherever you want. You're a holy person. You're close to God. God came to me in a dream to protect you. Not here. He says, go and leave. Why is that? Was Pharaoh less generous? Was he vicious in some way? So Rashi says no. And he proves it. He said, for the Egyptians are greatly addicted to lewd living. Kali. I hope doesn't need any explanation considering contemporary culture in which we live. As it is said, they behave like animals. So, Pharaoh is saying this to protect Abraham and Sarah. If you stay here, you're going to be in danger, because here the people know no restraint, and their sexual mores are without limit, and therefore you'll be in danger here. And the proof of it is in the next verse, where when he sends him away, it says, Pharaoh gave command concerning him, means for his sake, to escort him and protect him. When he told him to leave, he didn't tell him to leave on his own. On the contrary, he gave him an escort to protect him as long as he was in the land. So that means he was in danger. So that I think supports what Rashi says, that when he's telling him to leave, not for lack of generosity and not for lack of recognition, but simply because he'd be in danger. Yeah.
So why would his motives be like that? If Pharaoh, got these plagues because of this interaction, why would he be almost like, maybe not merciful is the right word, but generous to the cause of his plagues, the people who cause his plagues?
You're not thinking into I would say, the political situation. This person is a favorite of a very powerful God. So you better treat him well. He caused plagues in your whole household. You're Pharaoh. You worship the sun. You worship the Nile. You yourself are a god. Trivial. Sorry. Nothing. Plagues all over. You can't control it, right? It better be on the good side of this fellow.
This is also not just I'm getting plagues for doing something. I'm getting plagues to know that this guy's, I should protect him almost.
Well, as I said, this is an interesting example. His response to the plagues is to call Abraham in and say, you lied to me, you said your brother and sister, she's really your wife. Something had to happen in the plagues to give him that information. We don't have here that he had a dream that God spoke to him. And the text doesn't tell you. From the fact that he said it, somehow in the interactions he found out that was the situation. Okay. But then, now he knows who he's dealing with. Yeah.
Going back, when Abraham was negotiating with Pharaoh, what leverage did Abraham have? Because how could he have ever said no and walked away?
How could he have said no? I'm not following.
When they were negotiating for the cattle and all that, and the riches for Sarah with Pharaoh, they were negotiating.
No, I said no. I said it didn't work out the way he thought it was going to work out. If it's an Egyptian official, if it's an Egyptian prince, and so on, then there would be negotiations. But I said explicitly, Pharaoh doesn't negotiate. He just takes. He just takes.
So they were like, here's $50,000, there's no negotiation.
Because if you are the emperor, and you're going to marry this woman, and she has a brother, and he's a pauper begging in the doorsteps, that's not appropriate.
I get that. But was Pharaoh's associate negotiating with Abraham?
No, he wasn't negotiating. Pharaoh doesn't negotiate. I'm telling you, Pharaoh does not negotiate. He takes. He doesn't need to negotiate with anybody.
Why did he give Abraham anything then?
I just told. Listen, yeah. There's something. We're not on the same channel here. He took her into the palace in order to arrange a state marriage. She's going to be one of his queens. It is unseemly that your queen should have a brother who is a pauper, who is penniless, who's, at the lowest end of society. He's going to be part of the state, right, the state prison. Going to be part of the people in the palace, everything else. It's inappropriate that it should be like that. That's all. But it's not negotiations. Yeah.
Rav,
earlier that Sarah was like, comparable a little bit to Esther, and so I was wondering if, according to what Talmud is saying, maybe that I don't know what the negotiations were in the Purim story, but did Achashverosh give to Mordechai something?
Okay, let's not. I'm not going there. I'm not making comparisons in that way. I'm not doing Gil's Esther. We'll get there in a few months, Mir Hashem. But the way Rabbi Kiva once started a shir, he said, "How was Esther? What was her merit to become the queen of 127 provinces? Because Sarah lived 127 years." So, lightheaded people read that as a joke he did to wake them up, and to catch their attention. There are very deep things there, which I'm not going to go into. Okay. So, now, let's continue on. So they left. Now, when they went down to Egypt, it was Avram, Sarah, and Lot. And now they're going back out of Egypt. It's Avram, Sarah, and Lot. And he too was given riches because he's the nephew of the brother-in-law. So now they're rich and they leave Egypt, and there's a disagreement about the land and how to pasture the animals, and there's friction. And Avram says, there shouldn't be friction between us. We are kinsmen. There shouldn't be friction between us because we're kinsmen. Not because it's not good for you, it's not good for me, and then it's dangerous. And so, no, we're kinsmen. There shouldn't be friction. Okay, fine. So Lot leaves. And then it says, look at verse 14, the middle of the page, 61. Hashem said to Avram, after Lot had parted from him. Now, this is typical of biblical style. A happened and then B happened. This happened after that. Well, if you're reading the verses in sequence, the immediately preceding verses tell you that Lot separated. So then the next thing. What happened? Sometimes things are out of order, but the vast majority of the time not. Why would the Torah say, after Lot separated from him, then Hashem spoke to him? It means because that's part of the cause. Part of the cause of Hashem speaking to Avram is that Lot left him. Now, why would that be? So look at Rashi, 13:14. So long as the wicked Lot was with him, the word of God kept away from him. As long as the wicked Lot was together with Avram, because Baruch Hu didn't speak to Avram. I think there's a very, and this is a midrash Tanchumas, so it's Chazal. Avram is in the business of converting the world. We saw that already. Avram converts the men, Sarah converts the women, and converting them to a belief in the Creator, and someone who rules the universe, and someone who should be worshipped and should be followed and obeyed. And he has this nephew. And his nephew is weak and deficient in some ways. So Abraham says, what am I going to do? Convert the whole world and leave my nephew in a condition of disaster? I can't do that. I think Abraham's thought, his motivation is very natural. What we're being told here is, according to this midrash, that was a mistake. It was a mistake. He should have been able to perceive that he had nothing to give to Lot, that Lot was immune to the kind of teaching that he was giving, and he should have separated from him. And the symptom of it is that God did not communicate with him all the time, that the wicked Lot was with him. Which tells us at least two things. Number one, it tells us, if you needed to be told, that no human being is infallible. As great as Abraham was, he made mistakes. This is true all over. He and Yitzchak and Yaakov and Moshe all made mistakes. And number two, the mistake can be being too generous, too self-sacrificing, too consistent in wanting to bring the world to a better place. That could be a mistake also. The truth is, as I've said to some of you a number of times, the truth is our actions are based on a rule book, not on our calculation of what God must want because of what he has done and the situation people are in, and therefore God must want. When you say, by the way, in English, when you say must, it means you're not really sure. I'm saying that as someone who taught modal logic, and in modal logic, something necessarily true, it's for sure true. But here's the opposite. Where are your keys? They're in my pocket. Where are your keys? They must be on the table. That means I don't really know. I'm figuring it out. I'm deducing it from someplace else, and I would not be astonished if they weren't on the table. So here he should have known that this was beyond his capacity, and he should have disconnected from Lot. And the proof of it is that God didn't speak to him the whole time. And that's what the Torah is saying. After Lot separated from him, God appeared to Abraham. Because you have to understand that that's part of the cause of why God spoke to him. Not just A happened and B happened and C happened. You know, it's a kind of the day's events, what happened at 10 o'clock, what happened at 11 o'clock, what happened at 12 o'clock. No, one is a cause of the other. Very, very often, almost always, that's the case when you have a sequence of events. Yeah.
Is the wickedness of Lot reflected in when he decides to establish himself in Sodom, like as at that level of wickedness that reaches to he sees Sodom and he goes to Sodom. I mean,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Intelligent people know that you are affected by your environment, and he chose to dwell in a very degraded environment. We are single-minded about finding a good environment to live in. There can be exceptions, but they're very rare and they have to be very extreme. Okay.